Welcome back to the Waterlogged Woodsman and welcome to 2021. You know, this is a new year. Last year in 2020 we hit 100 subscribers and we're hoping to see some continued growth this year out of the Waterlogged Woodsman community. Now, the most popular video on my channel by far is the video where I review the Mako Speargun Predator Pro. And you know, everyone's always interested in new gear, especially beginners, so I figured I'd start off this year by going through what my gear for 2021 looks like. Now, I'm going to start from the ground up with what I'm using, and so I'm going to start with my feet. So we're going to start with the fins. This year, I'm using Dive R carbon fins. I had them at the end of last year, but I'm hoping they'll continue to hold out through the rest of this year. And they were, you know, very comfortable fins. I've got Pathos foot pockets. And also, you know, they just kick so much more efficiently than the old Cressi Gara fins that I have. Now, my backup old reliable fins, you know, the ones that pretty much are indestructible and will never break, are the Cressi Garas. You know, these fins right here are, you know, I've had them for probably close to 8 years now. They're all scratched up, but they're bomb proof, and if the, you know, Dive R fin should fail at any point, I've got these in the bag to back it up. And one thing that I've added to my gear bag this year is a couple of fin keepers, because, you know, after having to contend with some heavier California shore diving surf conditions, I really just wanted to make sure that my fins stayed on my feet. Now, the next thing moving up are obviously booties, and so I've got 2 sets of booties. I've got a cheap online Amazon order pair that are, you know, probably about 1 millimeter thick, and I've also got some, I think they're 5mm booties from Mako. These, you know, are what I use with my 7mm wetsuit, and these are what I use with my 3mm wetsuit. And on my leg, I have a JBL knife, and now I've got rubber straps with a clip here because I prefer to have it around my leg where it's easy to reach. I had it on my belt, and you know, everyone recommends that, but I just have a hard time reaching that consistently, where if it's on my leg, I always know where it's at. And so that's the most comfortable position for me to have this knife, but you always need a knife. Knives are super important. This one especially has, you know, a serrated edge. It's a little rusty. It doesn't really matter. You just need to be able to cut that line if you get tangled in it. So you just need to make sure that you have a knife to kill fish, but also cut yourself out if should you get tangled. And now, before I move on to what wetsuits I'm using, I'm gonna go over my weight belt. So I've got, you know, 20 pounds on here. That's what I need for my 7mm. I only need like probably 4 pounds with my 3mm wetsuit. Just different buoyancy, how old the suit is and that sort of thing. But this one, the most important part is this little clip right here. And the reason this clip is important is because it's quick release. Should I ever be coming up, you know, starting to black out or something like that, I can just rip this belt right off and drop it. And that's going to keep me from shallow water blacking out and possibly dying. Another thing that I'm using, and I put on my weight belt more recently, are these metal D-loops here. Now I've got one on both sides, and I run my stringer through it. I can clip my gun off to it. It's basically just something I use so that way I can go hands-free if I need to. And my stringer is just, you know, a simple metal spike, not super long. I have my wire coated. I wanted to get the rubber on it just so it wouldn't possibly cut my suit or anything like that. Just to a carabiner, a cheap carabiner on the other side. And this is what I clip to one side D-loop, and then I put this through the other side D-loop, and, you know, no fish are gonna come off my stringer that way. And now a lot of people are usually interested in what type of wetsuits I have just because of different water temps and stuff like that. And if you want me to do a more in-depth review of what wetsuits I use, you know, let me know in the comments and I can do more in-depth reviews on any of the gear I have in this video. So the first wetsuit I have is a Mako Yamamoto wetsuit. It's in camo. This is a 7mm. This is what I used in California. Now this one is open cell. That means you have to use lube to get into it. Now keep that in mind for the second wetsuit. But this one, you know, the camouflage I wanted, I was diving in California. A lot of the guys say if you wear black in California, you look more like a seal. You might get hit by a white shark. Never saw a shark, but definitely didn't want to encounter one, so I decided to go with the camouflage. Also, you know, it wasn't any more expensive, and it was worth it to me. And these suits overall are very, very, you know, not necessarily cheap, but budget-worthy suits where, you know, they're not going to break the bank. And I think for a first wetsuit, this would be a good wetsuit for a lot of people. Now the other wetsuit I have is my speared wetsuit. And now this one I like a lot more because this one's got what's called fire fleece on the inside. That means that with this wetsuit, I can get into it without any lube. I don't have to bring any lube with me. I'm not going to get all, you know, greased up to get into it. I just like being able to do that. You know, it's a 3 mil, so I can't use this one in California, but for what I do around here in North Carolina and Hawaii, tropical waters and stuff like that, like this is plenty of a suit. Even sometimes it's a little hot. And now this one I got black because camo was more expensive from them, but also because, you know, online everyone argues whether or not black or camouflage is better, and honestly I don't think there's a difference. I think it's more important to how you hide from the fish, so black in this one, camouflage in the other. The next thing I'm going to talk about is gloves, and I'm going to show you right now what the best possible gloves for spearfishing are. Garden gloves. These right here. You can buy them at most hardware stores. It's just, you know, got some sort of stretchy mesh with a rubberized hand. And that's all you need for spearfishing. You know, everywhere I've gone, you just need a little bit of protection from the reef, but you really don't need like a neoprene glove. Even in California, you know. I went in California, I bought some Mako spear gun gloves. I thought it was going to be cold, but, you know, most of the time my hands were hot in these and they were sweating. And also it just, you know, really restricts your finger motion, so when you're pulling the trigger or trying to grab something, it was a little bit harder. So I don't think they're necessary. And I would just stick with the cheaper garden gloves, unless, you know, you go out and your hands get really cold, and then you can upgrade to these, but stick to $10 gloves, don't spend the money. The mask I have here is a mask I bought at basically a hardware store in Hawaii. It's just a cheap Cressy mask. It was $25. It fits my face well, and that's the only thing you need for a mask. Go into a dive shop, your local dive shop. Don't order one offline, it's a terrible idea. And just put the thing on your face. See if it sticks, and if it does, that's a good mask for you. That's more important than anything else. And then a snorkel can be any sort of cheap J snorkel. As long as you can breathe out of it, that's all that matters. This year I've got 2 main guns. My brothers also have a couple guns in different sizes that, you know, I might switch out to every once in a while. But the main 2 guns are 120 centimeter raw bowline. I've got a reel on this one. And I've also got the loading butt. This is a Vecta tuna. I got this thing probably, you know, 6 years ago. And I've never had to really replace anything on it. And I've shot, you know, I'll throw a picture up. I shot a 40-pound Alua with it. Didn't even bend the shaft. So this is my go-to tropics gun. Anytime I get clear water, I shoot with this just because it'll punch through any fish. Now, this is my other gun. This is my Mako spear gun. Now, this one's shorter, but I've had issues with this one not being able to punch through fish. Not being able to have the range that I wanted. But in California, this is a great gun. You know, this can shoot in rocks. This shoots in murky water much better than my longer gun because I can actually see the end of it. But this one kind of, you know, can't handle those bigger fish. I've had issues where, you know, we had a sheep's head. I shot it in the head and it only went up to the flopper just because the bone is dense enough that this gun doesn't have the power to punch through. But otherwise, I mean, this thing will kill fish all day long. I've shot all types of fish in California with it. I've shot walleye with it. I've shot carp with it. So still a good gun, but maybe just get it in a larger size than 80 centimeters if you're worried about range or not being able to punch through a bigger fish. Another important piece of safety equipment alongside the knife is a float. And, you know, if you're not shooting big pelagic fish, you do not need an expensive float. $25 off of Amazon. Has a flag, it floats, that's all you need. That thing will, you know, is visible from the surface, it keeps boaters away from you, hopefully. People still have issues with that, I don't know why. But this is a piece of safety equipment. This will keep you alive, you won't get hit by a boat. And then along with that, I've got a cheap, just cord. I think it's a 100-foot float line. I didn't want to get one of the rubber ones just because I wanted it to be small so that way when I pack it into my travel case, I don't have an issue with space. The last couple pieces of equipment I have are things that I've made myself. And if you want me to make a video on how I made them, you know, let me know in the comments. But both of these are what I call drop weights. And so when we're driving around the boat, you know, and we're marking structure on the bottom, it's not very easy for us to park our boat directly over and then dive the anchor. Our boat's just not really big enough to hold. And so what we've got are drop weights. So we'll drive over and we'll drop it in. And so all I do is I go up the back of the boat as soon as I hit my spot and I just drop this in. And what it'll do is the weight will go down to the bottom and this will unravel like super fast and you'll never miss your spot. But that way you can just keep driving past, anchor your boat wherever is easiest, And then you have a marker on your spot that you can now dive up and down this little braided line to exactly where you want to be diving. Arguably, the most important piece of equipment I have is my Sport Tube travel case. This is what I've had with me for, you know, over a year now. They hold all of my gear in it at all times. And you know, the good thing about this is it extends out so I can fit spear guns in here. It's got wheels so I can roll it when it gets heavy. And it's got plenty of space for me to fit multiple spear guns, multiple sets of fins, multiple wetsuits. You know, this is the biggest version, but it's definitely worth it if you're going to be traveling around diving often, or even, you know, a couple times. Because this protects your gear from the flight. It will not get destroyed. You know, you can't break a gun or anything like that. The thing that comes with it is this little clip here to lock your Sport Tube in place. That's all it is, right? That's not very secure. So how do you make your Sport Tube more secure? How do you lock it, right? This is what we came up with. It is a piece of wire from Home Depot, and this piece of wire is attached to a TSA lock. That's all it is. The wire just runs through the same hole that the pin does, and it allows you to lock it so that way people can't get into your dive gear and can't steal anything. That's the last of the gear that I have, or at least for now. You know, I'm always buying gear when I shouldn't. But if you want to see any of the reviews of this gear, let me know in the comments. If you're particularly interested, I'm going to be putting as many of the links to where you can buy these things in the description, so go check that out. And if you like the video, subscribe. Just a little bit of extra motivation for me to continue to make these videos for you guys. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.